Joe Biden has chosen former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm as his energy secretary. People familiar with the talk say that she was actively promoting herself for this position, and now it seems like she's going to secure it. By the way, she was also promoting herself for the position in the case that Clinton would have won in 2016, but of course it didn't work out that way. Her record on pollution and climate change is, I think, what would appeal to Joe Biden. She is, outspoken in favor of like the climate, the Paris Climate Accord. I remember when Trump pulled out of that, she was pretty furious about it. She did serve 2 terms as Michigan's governor and is experienced in dealing with the auto industry, which could potentially be valuable expertise when it comes to moving vehicles from, gas reliant to, maybe renewable energy, electric vehicles. Also, the Department of Energy is important because it deals with appliance standards, conducting research on innovations like electric heat pumps, overseeing building and residential energy efficiency programs. And as Politico reports, most of the Energy Department's budget is devoted to maintaining the country's nuclear weapons arsenal, but it also operates the 17 national labs that have helped develop advanced technology used in renewables, nuclear energy, and fossil fuel production. Now, in November, she wrote an op-ed in the Detroit News where she argued this: the private sector needs greater support and political will. I mean, take this for what it is. The private sector needs greater support and political will from our policymakers to help us fully realize the potential of a zero carbon future. I like zero carbon future, that's promising. The economics are clear. The time for a low carbon recovery is now. And John, I know that you feel particularly passionate about climate change. You talk about it on your show on a regular basis. And so I wanted to get your initial thoughts on Granholm as the pick here.
Yeah, yes, I am passionate about that, but I've been beaten down by the cabinet. I've resigned myself to what we know about Biden and who he's going to pick. This is not one of the worst picks. This isn't even the pick that frustrates me the most today. It's not a person that I would have thought of for this position. I don't know if 6 months ago this was someone that people were expecting would potentially be up for it, but it could go either way. She has said some good things. We'll see. I don't know. Like I'm gonna be completely honest. Like you were saying in the break, it's been a pretty dispiriting series of appointments. Not all of them. There have been 1 or 2 that have been good, and there's one today that's pretty good. But I don't have particularly
Buttigieg,
high
right?
expectations for.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I don't have very high expectations, and so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as you. I mean, honestly, of course, we had this story prepared, ready to go for the show today. But even though it was like near the top of the rundown, I later moved it to the bottom because I'm also burnt out, right? Like these cabinet picks, for the most part, have been disappointing in that you have a lot of people who have been working as lobbyists recently, or people who are just flat out like centrist. They're not progressives. The only one that I know about, and maybe I missed some news today, but Javier Becerra from California as the head of HHS, I like that pick. Pick. But as Bernie Sanders said, even today during an interview on CNN, he's been asked point blank, like, do you think that Biden is appointing enough progressives? And he's like, no, I don't think he is. And I agree with him. I don't think he is. Jennifer Granholm is perfectly lovely, but she is certainly a centrist Democrat. And she does toe the party line. And so we'll see how she performs as energy. Yes, as energy secretary. But let's move on to one other pick that I think is interesting here. Joe Biden also picked Gina McCarthy to head the Office of Domestic Climate Policy. McCarthy, who currently serves as the head of the National Resources Defense Council, will lead Biden's newly reformed, or I should say newly formed, Office of Domestic Climate Policy. McCarthy served as the administrator of the EPA from 2013 to 2017 under President Barack Obama. There's a lot of people coming back from the Obama administration. I mean, that has been a trend that I've noticed in a lot of these cabinet picks. And let me give you some more details on what she's done. Now, Trump and McCarthy are certainly not friends. That's unsurprising. Trump revoked a key regulation that underpinned America's pledge in the landmark 2015 international agreement. The regulation, the Clean Power Plan, was written by McCarthy when she served as EPA administrator, along with others in the Obama administration. It established the first ever federal regulations to limit carbon dioxide from power plants. And look, I mean, we have to wait and see, but one of my concerns has been that all we're gonna get in Biden's term is just a reversal of all the damage that Trump has done, and that's clearly not enough. We need bold leadership here. We need to go above and beyond. Time is of the essence, and let's not forget that Joe Biden also said that he's a proponent of fracking. I mean, he said that openly and clearly on the debate stage. So I know what to expect from a Biden administration when it comes to climate change. Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna be disappointed if all they do is reverse Trump's disastrous policies.
Yeah, which is looking like there's a good chance of that. I mean, in theory, Biden's climate plan is better than Obama's was back in the day. So in theory, they should do more than just get us back to the Obama standard, but that remains to be seen. This is the pick of the three that I think is most promising. Not perfect, but most promising. The NRDC they've been behind a lot of great lawsuits against Trump for a number of different environmental deregulation changes that they made over the past few years. That's been good. Sunrise Movement seems fairly positive towards this. So that is something. But that said, looking at the cabinet at large, we knew what was on the line in the primary. We knew why it mattered that Bernie wins and what the cost of him losing would be. And this is what losing looks and feels like. We'll try to push for the best people we possibly can. And maybe when we turn to the last of the three picks today, as frustrating as it might even be a representation of the success in doing a bit of pushing. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to go to one other cabinet pick who's been making news recently, and that is Pete Buttigieg has been chosen for transportation secretary. Does he have expertise in transportation or the expertise that's necessary to serve in this position? No, but don't worry. He did say, "I also had a personal love of transportation since childhood." That was a statement that was referenced by Josh Letterman from NBC News.
God, that is.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. I've liked moving from time to time in my life. Sometimes I'm in one spot and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a different spot, and I've enjoyed the transition. We should all change position from time to time. I used to support Medicare for all, and I've moved very far from there. Transportation can be fun. Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. And look, they knew that there were gonna be critics of this pick when they decided what position they were gonna give Buttigieg. A week ago, it was ambassador to China. They landed on transportation. I have to hope that there was a strategy and that it wasn't literally what it looks like, which is putting a bunch of federal departments on a dartboard and then winging something at it. That's what it looks like actually happened. And so give the guy a heads up, or maybe you don't need to, since he's supposed to be so quick thinking on his feet, that you're gonna have to make the case for why this pick makes sense. And that's not good enough. That I've always had a love of transportation. I've been to an airport once. South Bend's got buses. That's not a good enough argument. But they apparently believe that they don't have to do better than this.
Well, yeah, and look, a lot of these cabinet picks seem to be favor for a favor type situations, right? And I think most Democrats who ran in the primary and then later decided to end their candidacy and back Biden did so knowing that if they did that, they'd get a favor later, maybe a position in his cabinet. And that it seems like that's what happened with Pete Buttigieg, who, by the way, like had no chance of winning the Democratic primary, but nonetheless, he was willing to do what the Biden campaign wanted at a critical moment, and yeah, which made Super Tuesday pretty unbearable. But I do want to just quickly note that the way that this is being written about is frustrating. So I'm going to go to the New York Times. When they wrote about this story, this is what they chose for their lead. That's the first paragraph in the article, right? President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr. will nominate Pete Buttigieg to be Secretary of Transportation. Mr. Biden's transition team announced Tuesday selecting a former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and former opponent who would bring a younger voice to the cabinet and add to its diversity as its first openly gay member. Okay, you guys are journalists. And so the lead is that Joe Biden has chosen someone who has no expertise for a position that he has no expertise in. Like that's the lead. That's the issue. But like, okay, Brett made an okay point that I want to share with you guys. I'm not throwing you under the bus, Brett. I really did think this was a good point. It made the land a little softer for me, right? I hate Eric Garcetti, the current mayor of Los Angeles. He's an incompetent buffoon. He's a complete and utter disaster. He has no right to be in any position of power considering how much he's mismanaged Los Angeles. He's a disaster. He was being considered for this post. And as much as I question Pete Buttigieg for this role, I am relieved that it won't be Eric Garcetti. Yeah, that's it. That's all I've got.
Yeah, and so that's what I was alluding to earlier with, maybe it was pressure that Eric Garcetti has been floated and the reaction was bad, and any pick is one less job for Rahm Emanuel, so that's good. And I know some people are probably thinking, well, wait, why would they put Rahm Emanuel in this one? Why would they put Buttigieg? Like they don't need a reason to do any of these things. This is just candy. And it's Halloween and they're handing out candy. That's basically what's going on here. I would say I've made the exact same criticism that why would they pick a person with no expertise? But I'm gonna go even broader than that. Let's say we're not expecting expertise. Because I don't necessarily know exactly what sort of expertise would be best for Secretary of Transportation. We could come up with something if we were to work on it. But how about like experience managing thousands of people? There are people who've done that at least. Transportation is 55,000 employees. South Bend is just 100,000 people, honestly. He was a mayor of a small town. How he got into that position, it is interesting. He was a young mayor and there's not tons of them. That's interesting. The fact that he was able to get people to pay attention to him in a crowded field with seemingly no experience other than being a consultant and a small town mayor is interesting. Although I don't think necessarily it's not great, but it's just like, this is just, of all the criticisms, the most important, I think, for me is just that this is a fundamentally unserious way of looking at governance. If your argument is he's been on buses or he's a smart lad, he'll learn on the job, that is not good enough. This isn't like you're trying to have your son take over your car dealership or something like that. This is the Department of Transportation. And we just ended years of criticizing Donald Trump for choosing people that weren't qualified for their positions just because he happens to know them, or they appeared on Fox News, or they donated money to him, or they're his daughter. And so now we're finally changing, and Biden's gonna give this kid a job because he did him a favor or something. It's not serious. Maybe he'll do a good job, but it ain't starting off in a serious way.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.